Hello friend, welcome back to Acre Homestead. We are doing a fun project. This is something I've wanted to do for a really long time, and today is the day. We are gonna make homemade mozzarella cheese and pizza. I'm really excited about this. So what I'm doing in this big stock pot that I have, I'm gonna put 2 gallons of milk. The recipe that I'm following only calls for 1 gallon, but if I'm gonna go through the effort of making mozzarella cheese, I might as well make a little bit more than just one batch. Hopefully it turns out. If it doesn't turn out, I have store-bought mozzarella cheese in my refrigerator, so we can have our pizza with mozzarella cheese. But I think this is gonna turn out. I've done this 1 or 2 other times about 6 years ago. So this is a skill that I definitely wanna master. And today is the day to go ahead and start learning how to do this again and getting proficient at it. So what I have done is I just added 2 gallons of organic milk. You can use store-bought milk to make cheese. The only thing is when you make cheese, you want to make sure that it does not say ultra pasteurized. Your curd won't set if it's ultra pasteurized. So just look on the label and make sure it says pasteurized only. You can make cheese out of raw milk too, but I don't really have access to that. So we're just gonna use some organic store-bought milk. And this is whole milk. And it's pasteurized. The best way to find just pasteurized, not ultra pasteurized, is try to find a milk that is more local to you. The longer they have to ship it, or the farther they have to ship it, typically it's ultra pasteurized. I just purchased a mozzarella and ricotta cheese making kit. You can buy the ingredients separately to do this, but I thought it would be easier just to go ahead and buy a kit. I do want to master making ricotta too. I've made ricotta, but it's been 5 or 6 years since I've done that as well. But today we're just gonna make the mozzarella cheese. So we need to heat up our milk. The recipe says 290 degrees. So I went ahead and I put my milk in here first. And while this is warming, I'll just stick the lid on it. And I should probably take its temperature before, so that I know how warm it needs to get to. So this kit came with a cheese thermometer. So I'm gonna get this out of the packaging. I'm gonna rinse it off real quick and we'll take this milk's temperature. This milk is sitting at about 58 degrees, so it's got not too much to come up to temperature. So now what we need to do is we need to dissolve the rennet and the citric acid into some water. So I've pre-measured out 1/2 cup of water and 2 cups of water in these measuring cups. I can link this cheese making kit down below if it's something you are interested in trying to make yourself. We need to dissolve the citric acid in 2 cups of water. The citric acid is what makes mozzarella cheese stringy. So we're just gonna get that dissolved in there. So that's 2 cups of water and 1 tablespoon of citric acid. And now we need 1/2 tablet of rennet. So I'm gonna cut this tablet in half, and we're gonna dissolve that in 1/2 cup of water. Our citric acid has dissolved in our water, and we need to add this right away to our milk before it comes up to temperature fully. And we're gonna use a stainless steel slotted spoon. You want everything when you're making cheese to be as clean as possible. So we're gonna pour our citric acid mixture into our milk, and we're gonna stir this vigorously. And it says we need to stir this until this comes up to temperature. The rennet that we just dissolved in some water, the rennet is what is going to turn the cheese from a milk liquid mixture. It's going to turn the cheese into curds and whey. That's what kind of binds the curds together, and we're gonna get a cheese product because of the rennet. So now I wanna go ahead and take its temperature to see what we're looking at now. This has not been on the stove very long since I put in the milk in this pot, and we are already at 80 degrees. So it's come up quite a bit. So it's not gonna take long for this whole pot, probably another 4 or 5 minutes, to come up to our 90 degrees. cheese making is a skill that I really want to master. I really want to get into making hard cheeses. Mozzarella cheese and ricotta cheese are kind of the gateway cheese, I think, because they are quite a bit easier. And so I want to get really proficient at making both mozzarella and ricotta. And then when I get the confidence under my belt, I want to attempt making the harder cheeses like Gouda and Parmesan and cheddar and all those really yummy things. Maybe one day I'll have a milk cow and I will have mastered the skills of turning milk into cheese. But now I don't have a milk cow and it won't be for a long time, but I can take this time now to learn these skills. Just like I took before I had a garden, I took that time to learn how to can and preserve fresh produce. I learned how to source fresh produce from local farmers. And I'm gonna take this time before I have a milk cow or a dairy cow to master cheese making. I do already know how to make sour cream and butter. So we are at about 85 degrees. I want to check my ingredients or my recipe one more time to make sure it's 90 degrees we're trying to get to. Yes, 90 degrees. If you're using raw milk, you want it to get to 88 degrees. So it's interesting. This, in the directions, it has raw milk directions and pasteurized milk directions. We are almost there. Okay, we are at that temperature, so I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to pull this off the heat. So that did not take long to get to 90 degrees at all. That took less than 5 minutes. So now that it's at 90 degrees, we took it off the stove, and it says take the pot off the burner, slowly stir in the rennet in an up and down motion of a slotted spoon for approximately 30 seconds. I don't really know what that means, to slowly stir in the rennet in an up and down motion with a slotted spoon. So we're just gonna go for it. Rennet is found in the lining of calf stomachs, and you can find vegetable-based rennet too. It's an enzyme. I don't know what this is because this just came in the kit that I got. So we're gonna stir for 30 seconds. This is a 30-quart pot. So if this works and I really like it, I think I could probably fit 4 gallons of milk in here at a time if this is something I wanted to do on a regular basis. So it says stir for 30 seconds, which I think I've done. But I tend to like to do things a little bit more than it says, so I need to make myself stop because I think I've definitely been doing this long enough. You just want to make sure, I think that all the rennet is mixed in there, and I can feel the consistency already changing. So I'm going to stop stirring, and I'm going to put the lid on. And now we just wait for 5 minutes. It says if you're using store-bought milk, we're gonna wait for 5 minutes. If you're using raw milk, you're gonna wait for 10. So I am gonna set a timer. So far this is going a lot faster than I would have expected. So 5 minutes, timer is started. And then once this sits, then we get to cut the curds. This is going pretty fast. And then I need to read the directions on how to stretch it. I already put in the refrigerator a pot or a bowl of water, really cold water. And we're supposed to put that in the refrigerator so it gets even colder. So that's what I have going right now. While I'm waiting for this, I'm gonna keep rereading these directions. I've probably already read through them 3 times, but I just wanna keep familiarizing myself with them. So I'm gonna keep reading the next step so that when we get to it, I kind of have a grasp on what we're doing. Our timer has gone off, so now we get to see if this has set. It should look like custard. Oh yeah. I think I'm gonna let it sit for just a minute longer. You can see that the whey, which is this yellowy liquid, is starting to separate from the curd. Okay, here we go. We're gonna cut the curds. So we're just gonna take a knife and run it along all the way to the bottom of the pot. Now we're gonna go the other direction. then we're going to go at an angle at the other direction. This recipe just says cut the curds with a knife that reaches the bottom of the pot. It doesn't say what size to cut the curds into, which is interesting because I know that when I've made other or researched other cheese, it's been very specific on the size the curd should be, but that's all it says. And then it says we need to heat up this milk mixture to 110 degrees. So I'm going to turn the stove back on and let's see what temperature we're at right now. I don't think this is going to take very long because it didn't take very long to heat it up the first time. And it doesn't say, let's see, put back on the stove and slowly heat it while stirring the curds with a slotted spoon. So we still got our slotted spoon here. And we're still at about 90 degrees. So it's going to take just a couple minutes here probably for it to come up to 110 degrees. Feels like it's kind of not sticking together. Like the curds are starting to fall apart. But like I said, it has been years since I've made this, so I don't really remember what it looked like. So you can really start to see the whey separating from the curds. This is super interesting. We're at 100 degrees now. So the yellow, bright yellow liquid in there, that's the whey, and the white, that's the curds. In my sink, I put a colander with some butter muslin that came with this cheese making kit in it because we're going to have to strain the whey from the curds. I know you can save the whey and do things with it, but today we're just focusing on the mozzarella cheese. So I'm not going to save the whey. All right, we are at 110 degrees, so I'm going to turn the heat off, and then we need to stir this, it says, for 2 to 5 minutes. The longer we stir it, the firmer the cheese will be. And because we're gonna put this on pizza, I kind of want it to be a firmer cheese. So I'm gonna stir this for 5 minutes, so I need to set my timer again for 5 minutes. I'm surprised how fast this process has been going so far. I saved that much whey for the chickens, but I couldn't get all of it to fit in that bowl, so the rest of it we will just pour down the sink. So I just washed my hands really, really well because we are going to be touching this curd. My chickens devoured the whey. They absolutely loved it. So that was a great use for the whey. I just put the bowl outside and they polished it off in about 3 days. So here is the mozzarella cheese so far. We still need to heat it and stretch it. So I'm gonna stick it in. We're gonna do it in the microwave. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do it on the stove or in the microwave. And I think the microwave is gonna be the easiest option. So I'm gonna try to get as much of this curd off as possible. And like I said, I washed my hands and made sure they were very, very clean since we are touching this cheese. And here is our mozzarella cheese before it's salted or stretched. Okay, this is the part that feels intimidating to me, but it seems really easy. This is just where we're turning it from just curd into cheese, I think. So we're gonna start with 1 minute. We're gonna turn that on. And it says, in a beautiful romantic world, I would rather do this on the stove just because I feel like the microwave seems like the easy way out. But it's easy way out. I have a microwave, I might as well use it. So I'm not going to try to die on that sword. We're gonna try to do it because it's gonna be a lot easier, it seems like. So it says, ladle the curds into a large microwave-safe bowl, drain off the whey using rubber gloves. If you'd like, press it into a bowl, which we already did that when we squeezed it. Microwave for 1 minute, fold the curds gently into the center of the bowl, draining any excess whey off, adding your salt optional. We're gonna add salt. That was 1 minute, and you can see that there's quite a bit of whey that has released out of this, so I'm gonna strain this. Now we're gonna add our cheese salt, and I think the only difference between cheese salt and regular salt is that cheese salt doesn't have iodine in it, but I'm gonna have to look that up because I'm not exactly sure. So we're supposed to add 1 teaspoon per 1 recipe, and I did 2 recipes, so that's 2 teaspoons. And we're supposed to take a spatula and fold it up onto itself, which now we microwave it again. The citric acid is what makes string cheese stretchy, and heating it and stretching it is what makes it stringy, I think. So that's what we're supposed to do. You want to microwave it in 30-second increments until it reaches 160 to 170 degrees. So let me grab our thermometer. I have heard, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I've seen this before, where you can take your whey and heat that up, and you can stretch your mozzarella cheese in hot whey water or hot whey, but I don't know if that's true or not. So if any of you guys are expert cheese makers, let me know if that's something you can do. I'm going to strain off this whey while I'm taking its temperature. We are at 120. You can see it's already starting to get a little bit stretchier. Not there yet though. I have my bowl of cold water out because we need to stretch this now. It is hot. I don't have gloves that I want to use on this, so I just have to try to do this with my own hands. We're at about 150 degrees. It says the more you stretch it and fold it, the firmer it will be. We want it to be smooth and silky. I don't have rubber gloves, but I have these gloves, which will at least be one little layer of protection on my hands just from the heat. Oh yeah, that's easier. So now we're supposed to stretch it. Ooh, it's hot. Hot. Okay, it's starting to cool off a little bit, and it's not quite the texture I want yet, so I'm gonna pop it back in the microwave. Whew, yes, gloves would be a highly suggested item to get if you're gonna do this, that are, you can see how red my hands are, that are just for cheese making. I have, you know, rubber gloves, but they're for cleaning, and there's no way that I would want to get them anywhere near my cheese making project. It's hot. With great pain comes great reward. It's starting to look really nice and silky and not grainy anymore. And I know you can make really cool shapes. It says braid it, turn it into mini balls, large balls, but I'm just trying to make some good cheese here. if it's not in a pretty shape, that's okay. I think I need to microwave this again. I did clean off the outside of my microwave really well before we got started too. That's another thing. Just when you're making cheese, from my understanding, you want everything to be as clean as possible. Now, this is not an aged cheese, so I don't think it's necessarily as critical that everything is sterilized, but you want it really clean. But if you are going to be making an aged cheese where you're going to be inoculating it with a bacteria or of some kind, you want to make sure that you're not introducing any other bacteria or anything into your aged cheese. I'm going to make two nice large balls. You can see how nice and shiny this cheese is getting. It smells so good too, and it's hot. And I'm just kind of folding it up on itself. I'm just pretending like I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna pinch it at the bottom. I guess I made a log, so we're gonna put that in our cold water. Okay, we're gonna put this in our cold water too. We got 2 logs. It said that putting your cheese in the cold water is really important on having the texture. You can see how red my hands are. Having the texture of this cheese come out smooth and not grainy. And I think that's our cheese. Now, I didn't see until just now, it says to make ricotta using the whey from the mozzarella. You can find that recipe on their website, which I just realized I could have probably turned. So I know traditionally ricotta is a cheese that was invented out of trying to get every last bit of milk protein or milk solids out of cheese, was to use the whey. But I think I'm gonna pop these in the refrigerator because I want them to stay as cold as possible so that we have a really good texture. I'm gonna pour some of this water out, it's a little too full. So that we have a nice texture on this cheese, and we will weigh it so we can find out how many pounds of cheese we got from 2 gallons of milk. We got the cheese in the fridge, and now we're gonna get going on the pizza crust. I am going to be tripling this recipe. This is my pizza dough recipe that I use when I throw pizza dough in the freezer. I put all of my cheese making stuff back in this box. I washed the thermometer really well, and we're gonna get this back in here so that next time I wanna make cheese, everything is in one spot. That was incredibly easy. So as long as that cheese turned out, that was so easy. So I'm excited about that. So I'm gonna set that aside so I can put that back in the pantry, and we can hopefully make more cheese in the future. Now, I was thinking, I think I could have used the whey to make the pizza crust, but I need to do more research on that. I thought about that after I gave it to the chickens. The chickens have already been enjoying it, so I'm glad that they are enjoying that and it's not going to waste. So in my big bowl, I'm gonna make this pizza dough from scratch because it's super easy. Or not from scratch, I mean, well, it is from scratch, but I'm gonna do it by hand. I'm not gonna do it with my mixer because my KitchenAid mixer is not big enough to handle this amount of dough. And it's super easy to do it by hand. So in here, we've got our water. And now we need to add our sugar, just a little bit of sugar to help feed the yeast. And then we are going to add our yeast to this. Mix that up, and I'm gonna let that sit for just a minute and let the yeast kind of become active. Now that our yeast is all nice and bubbly, I'm going to go ahead and start adding the rest of the ingredients. I'm gonna do a mixture of white all-purpose flour. I just grabbed my big tub because the one down here is almost empty, and we are gonna need about 9 cups of flour. I'm gonna do a mixture of just all-purpose white flour and einkorn flour. Einkorn flour is an ancient grain. It's one of the original wheat varieties, and it has a little less gluten structure, but the flavor of it is fantastic. But because it has a little less gluten structure, I like to mix half all-purpose, half einkorn, because I like the texture that the gluten of the all-purpose gives, but I like the flavor of the einkorn. And this has more protein in it per serving than just your plain all-purpose white flour. I can link down below where I get my bulk goods if you're interested in that. And so I'm going to do, let's see, so we need 6, 9, 10.5 cups. So I'm gonna put 5 cups, or we'll start with 4 cups of einkorn flour and 5 cups of all-purpose flour. And you can see, let me show you the difference in color. It's kind of cool. Einkorn flour is a lot more rich in pigment. This is the einkorn flour, and I'm gonna put the all-purpose flour in next, and you can see that the all-purpose flour is much whiter than the einkorn flour. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're gonna add a good amount of salt. So that's 1 recipe, 2 recipes, 3 recipes worth of salt. And that's 1, 2, 3 recipes worth of oil. I broke my Danish dough whisk, so I'm gonna get in here with just one of these wooden spatulas, and we're gonna mix this in as much as we can with this, and then I'll get in there with my hands. Again, my hands will be nice and clean in order to get in here and work this dough. Okay, I think I got that about as mixed as I'm going to with this spatula. I'm gonna knead this on the counter. I'm just gonna take a little bit of flour, put it on my counter, and we do need to work about 1 more cup or so of flour into this. Now this is a triple recipe. Each recipe makes 2 pies. Each recipe makes 2 pizzas. So for dinner tonight, I'm gonna make 2 pizzas, and then 2 of the recipes are gonna go in the freezer for another night. But we need to work in some more flour, and we need to develop this gluten structure on this dough. So I'm gonna knead this until the dough becomes super soft and smooth and elasticy. So it's gonna take me a good 5 minutes or so. So I'm gonna get my arm workout in this morning. That's about perfect there. So what I'm gonna do, because this is a triple recipe, I'm gonna cut it into thirds. Each one of these is gonna be put into a little dough ball. The one for dinner tonight, I'm gonna put a little bit of oil in the bowl that we made the crust in, and I'm gonna get this nice and oiled just so that this doesn't dry out. Nice and covered. And I just got a towel damp, and we're gonna cover this with a damp towel so that can double in size, and then we'll make dinner with that. Now for these other 2 dough balls that we have, I don't need this to rise at all. I'm gonna get these directly into the freezer, and I'm excited to have pizza dough back in my freezer. It's one of my favorite things to have in the freezer because it just makes, when you want pizza, that much easier when I already have the crust ready to go. So I just take a little bit of oil, whatever kind you want. This happens to be a light olive oil. I'm gonna stick it in one of these silicone bags. I love using these reusable silicone bags for these because they clean up really nicely, and I'm not wasting a freezer bag. But if you just have a Ziploc bag, just throw it in a Ziploc bag, and that works too just fine. I'm gonna put these directly into my freezer. They do not need to rise or anything like that, just straight from being made right into the freezer. Now we need to get the oven preheated. I'm gonna preheat the oven to 400 degrees. And I'm also gonna go ahead and preheat my cast irons. We're gonna make these pizzas in the cast iron. I don't always do that. I do prefer to do it this way, but I don't always take the time to do it. But today we are gonna do that. I'm gonna adjust my racks a little bit before warm. I have two different size cast irons. This is your normal 12-inch one, and that is a 17-inch one. So we're gonna get those preheating while our dough is rising. I need to get this cleaned up, but while I have my big flour container out, I'm gonna go ahead and refill this one so that I can have a full container of flour in my cupboard again. Figured I might as well get that done while my counter is covered in flour. And now I can get the counter cleaned up. This is kind of a lull moment, so these are the perfect times when you're cooking to go ahead and clean up and tidy up. My goal is to have the kitchen clean when I'm all done with all my kitchen shenanigans on this day. One of my goals that I wanted to do was make this pizza with home ground flour, but I couldn't find my wheat grinder anywhere. I looked for probably 20 minutes, and in the move, somehow I could not find where I put it. Well, the next day I found it. So hopefully I'm going to be grinding my own flour again pretty soon. I want to get into that habit again as well. With our pizza tonight, we're going to have sausage, onions, and peppers. That's Josh's favorite combination for pizza. So that's what I'm going to do. I just put down, I'm really excited about this, a deposit for a whole hog, and I'm going to be able to pick that up here in the next couple months. I think the end of April actually, so maybe not even a full month, but I am completely out of the sausage from the last whole hog I purchased, and I do ideally like to buy as much of my meat from local farmers whenever possible. But that's not always possible. I ran out of the pork, and so this pork is from Butcher Box. I really like Butcher Box's quality of their meat. I do have a discount for them if you order through my link. One thing I love about Butcher Box is they do 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef, which is something I'm super passionate about. And if you've never tried grass-fed, grass-finished beef, it tastes a little different than your typical store-bought beef. And so if you are interested in buying a whole cow from someone or half a cow, but you want to make sure you like the flavor of it first, ordering through Butcher Box is a great way to kind of see if that's something you like. I do purchase most of my chicken from them because I just can't afford to buy all the chicken pasture raised from local farmers, because in my area it's just pretty expensive. And Butcher Box's chicken is organic, and so I like the quality of their chicken. So I do buy almost all my chicken from them, and their pork products is really good too. So this is their Italian sausage. I am taking it out of the casing because I don't want the casing in our pizza. And I'm cooking 2 packages, which is 2 pounds, because I want to put some of it in the freezer so next time I make pizza I don't have to cook sausage. I like to have pre-cooked sausage and bacon in my freezer, so when I want to go to cook with sausage or bacon, I don't always have to cook it. And I can just save myself a step there. So that's what I'm doing here, is pre-cooking 2 pounds, and I'll probably only need 1 pound for dinner tonight. If you want to buy from local farmers, the best way I have found to find meat producers in my area is either look on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and a nonprofit website called localharvest.org. That website is also a great place to find CSAs if you want to become a member of a farm. Before I had my own garden and I lived in the suburbs, I became a member of a farm. Basically, you pay in usually the winter if you're going to become a member of a vegetable farm for the spring and summer. Usually you put a deposit down in the winter so that gives the farmers some cash flow to purchase their seed and fertilizer. And then throughout the summer, you get a box of produce. So localharvest.com is a really cool resource for that. I'm getting back in the habit of making kombucha, and we made this kombucha on Wednesday, it will be 2 weeks ago, and today is Monday. And I want to give this a taste test. I tested this about 4 days ago, and it was not quite fermented enough. It was still a little bit on the sweet side, so let's give it a taste test now and see how the flavor's looking. If you've never made kombucha before, it can look a little bit like a science experiment. This is a brand new SCOBY that this kombucha has formed. It's very healthy looking. The original SCOBY is right down there. So this is a brand new SCOBY. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the kombucha. Kombucha is fermented tea. I'm gonna give this a taste test and see if I like the flavor of it. Oh yeah, that is perfect. So good. Homemade kombucha, to me, tastes way better than anything store-bought. So I need to get some more kombucha made up. So I'm gonna start let me make sure I have enough tea bags. I know I was running low on black tea. I don't know if I have enough to make a whole new batch right now. Shoot. I wanna get this covered in the meantime. So we're gonna just cover this back up, and I'm gonna see if I can go find some tea bags. I need 8 to 10 tea bags to make 1 gallon of kombucha. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, these are all fancy herbal teas, and I need black tea. Let's see, green tea. Oh, we're here. So 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. 8 tea bags is technically how many you need. I like it a little bit stronger, so I like 10. I happen to have enough, so I can make up 1 more gallon of kombucha. Woohoo! I make a tea concentrate when I make kombucha, so I just have some water in here. I'm gonna make some black sweet tea, and we're just gonna get that in the microwave till it's nice and hot, and then we'll add our tea bags. Kombucha is so much more affordable to make from home than to purchase it. I used to make 2 gallons every 2 weeks, and Josh and I, that was like the perfect amount for us. But then I got out of the habit, we stopped drinking it, and so it wasn't worth me making it. And then for some reason, I got back in the habit of drinking it, and I wasn't drinking that much, so I just was purchasing, you know, a little bit here and there, and then it started adding up really quickly. So then I thought, you know what, I want to start making kombucha again because it's so much more affordable. It, to me, tastes way better, and so I went to go make kombucha again, and I had killed my SCOBY. I had never had that happen before. I was keeping my kombucha in my pantry, which is the coldest room in the house. It's actually colder than my basement, and kombucha does not like to be cold. It likes to be warm. So I learned that the hard way. So I went ahead and I purchased a new SCOBY. None of my friends right now are making kombucha. If you know people that make kombucha, they are more than willing to give you a SCOBY, but nobody I know right now is making it. So I did have to go ahead and purchase one. Since I made the first batch of kombucha, I'm just bottling that up. You can see how it's a little bit fizzy, but I want to do a second ferment on this, and I want to flavor this kombucha. So these are my favorite bottles to make my kombucha in because they have a wide mouth and they're really easy to clean. A lot of people really like the flip top ones, and those aren't my favorite because they're hard to clean. So we are going to flavor this kombucha strawberry. This is the best kombucha I have made probably ever. These strawberries were grown on our property. I picked them last summer and they are fabulous. So I want this kombucha to get really carbonated. So I put the fruit in there, which is going to give the kombucha a little bit of sugar to eat. And I put the lid on tight. And I'm going to let that sit on the counter for a second ferment. And the carbonation is going to get trapped in the bottle and it's going to get nice and bubbly and fizzy and delicious. I do have a video that's a more step-by-step video on how to make kombucha. I can link that down below if you're interested in that. And I can also link down below where I got my SCOBY. This is probably the best kombucha culture I've ever had, and I'm really, really happy with this SCOBY in particular. It's creating a really yummy flavored kombucha. I'm so excited to have kombucha going back again, but now it's time to give this cheese a taste test and to slice it up so we can make our pizza because our dough has doubled in size. It looks beautiful. We made cheese. Wow. Does it string? It doesn't really string. I don't know if I didn't Well, let's see. Oh yeah, it's kind of peeling a little bit. I wanted to make it a little bit more on the firm side because I knew we were gonna be putting it on pizza. And so I didn't want it to be too runny. So we're gonna shred this up. Friends, it's shredding up like cheese. We made cheese. It was that easy. Oh my goodness. We're making cheese. We're shredding cheese. We're shredding cheese that we made. This is incredible. Oh, I forgot to weigh it. Shoot. Darn it. Oh well. I think I will weigh it next time I make it. Okay, I'm gonna get, I think 1 block is probably gonna be more than enough for our pizza. Oh my goodness. That is incredible. That was so easy. The crazy thing is, it tastes like cheese. Whenever we're starting to learn new skills, it can always feel super intimidating, and it takes a lot of bandwidth and brain power to learn the skill. Like when I was first starting to learn to make kombucha, it was overwhelming. It seemed so complicated and so confusing. And when it comes down to it, once you get comfortable with it, it just becomes second nature. And let me encourage you, friends, if you want to learn to make kombucha, it is really easy. And you'll just get super comfortable and you'll realize that it's not that hard. But anytime we learn new skills, it can be very, very intimidating. And that's how I feel about cheese making. And so I would love cheese making to become just as second nature, where I don't even have to think about it, like making kombucha. Because when I first started making kombucha, it was really intimidating and it took a lot of brain power. And I always thought that I was messing it up because fermentation is it was so foreign to me, and cheese making feels really foreign to me. And you know, I just wanted to become comfortable with the concept and the skill. So it just felt really good to get this win under my belt and make cheese. The more I make it, the more comfortable I'll feel making it, and hopefully we can move on to some more complicated cheeses. I'm really comfortable making sour cream, homemade sour cream, and homemade butter, but we're just taking the step in the right direction to learn how to make cheese, and hopefully it will become second nature. That is so exciting. Now I just need to master sourdough. My oldest sister is really good at sourdough. She's been doing sourdough for years. My other sister is just going down the sourdough rabbit hole, and I keep getting pictures of her sourdough creations that are beautiful, and so now I just need to finally conquer sourdough. If I can conquer cheese, I think I can conquer sourdough. The only problem, I guess, kombucha is a living thing, and I have to keep this alive, but I just felt like I haven't had the bandwidth to keep one more thing alive, and I've always struggled with keeping my sourdough starter alive. So I have not done that. So this is still steeping. I'm gonna clean up the kitchen. Dinner is gonna be so good. I didn't get any peppers out of the freezer. I could have got peppers out of the freezer, but I didn't feel like doing that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this kitchen cleaned. We're making some serious progress today. So to finish our kombucha, we're gonna take our tea concentrate that's been steeping for a good 15 minutes. And I do get out any of the tea that's in the bags. So I just squeeze that out. And then I'm gonna compost these tea bags. And to this, because it's still nice and warm, I'm gonna add 1 cup of sugar. And we're gonna mix that until it's all dissolved. Now I could sit here and let this come down to room temperature if I wanted, but I don't have that kind of time today. I just want to get this going. So in this other jar, I just have some cold water. And now this is a nice temperature. You don't want to put hot water. It has to be under 105 degrees-ish before you add it to your SCOBY and your starter culture, because you can kill the living stuff that's in here if you put too hot of water in here. So now I'm just gonna fill this up with more water. I'm on a well, so I don't have chlorine or fluoride in my water. If you are on city water, I would recommend you purchase water that does not have chlorine in it, because you don't want to kill this culture. Now we're gonna put our towel back on, put a rubber band on, and we're gonna stick this back on our counter for about 2 weeks to ferment, and we will have another gallon of kombucha going. It's an easy ratio. It's 1 cup of sugar, 1 gallon of water, 1 cup of starter culture, and 8 to 10 black tea bags to make 1 gallon of kombucha. I like the 10 tea bags because I like it a little bit stronger flavor, and you got yourself some homemade kombucha. Now I like a very, very fizzy kombucha, so I'm gonna let this sit on the counter and do its second ferment for at least 2, if not 3 days. The sugar that's in the strawberries is going to help feed this culture and help make it even fizzier. You can see that there is some fuzz at the fuzz. We don't want fuzz. Fuzz is mold. There's some fizz at the top, and we want this to continue to build pressure. And so when we open it, we have a nice carbonated beverage. So those are the freeze-dried strawberries. Kitchen's clean. We are just waiting for the pizza to come out of the oven. All right, I think these pizzas are done. We got the kitchen cleaned, which is fantastic. We got a lot more projects done today than I was anticipating. Look at that. I'm excited to try this. It looks like the cheese melted pretty well. I'm gonna have to do some research on that. Oh yeah, this one looks really nice. Not too bad though for my first attempt in like 6 years. And when I made it last time, 6 years ago, I didn't like it, so I didn't eat it. So we have already done better this time than last time. So let's cut into these pizzas. Okay, so I think I've let this cool just long enough. That's a pretty big accomplishment. Homemade crust. I guess I didn't make the sausage, but homemade cheese turned out pretty good. I'm excited. I think that I want to keep going down this road and keep practicing the mozzarella and perfecting it. This is great. If you guys are interested in any of these recipes, or getting yourself a kombucha SCOBY, or trying to make mozzarella cheese for the first time, I can link the kit that I used down below if you're interested in that. I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me as we did some fun experiments in the kitchen, and they turned out pretty well. They don't always turn out well around here, but this one was a success, so I'm excited about that. I'm gonna call Josh in. We're gonna have a wonderful dinner, and we have enough for tonight and some for some lunches throughout the week. So thanks for being here, thanks for being you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.